She comes up to me, she says that she wants to take her own life. And at this point, it just broke my heart, because it's like I just don't feel like I'm able to do anything. I can only write it up and write it to the administrators, and now it's up to them to do something about it, and usually they don't. My name is Martina Brown, ex-teacher turned homeschool mom, and I'm going to tell you about why I pulled my children out of public school and why you should too. I had someone leave me a comment and say that, oh, well, my school district must be terrible. It's something that's happened in specifically my school district. Well, I put together these clips to let parents know that this is not isolated to just one demographic, to one part of the country. The following clips have taken place all around the country, all different states. There are so many students suffering. Take a look.
The parents of a Greenfield fourth grader who took his own life 1 week ago are now speaking out.
Boy, he was my baby. He was the youngest one. According to Sammy's family, he was being bullied up until the night before he died. First, they say it started at his school. What started as words, they say, progressively turned physical.
He was beat up on the school bus, and the kid broke his glasses and everything, and I called the school and I'm like, what are you doing about this? It keeps getting worse and worse and worse. It's not getting any better. As a matter of fact, it's getting worse.
It's consistent throughout here. You will see every parent say, hey, we went to the school. Nothing was done. Every single clip.
Jocelyn Carranza died a few days after trying to take her own life.
It was 12 degrees in Gainesville when they carried the casket into St. Mary's Catholic Church, the same church where 11 years earlier, Jocelyn Rojo Carranza was baptized. Jocelyn died February 8th, 5 days after she attempted suicide at her home in Gainesville. Her mom says bullying got so bad at Gainesville Intermediate School that Jocelyn was meeting with a school counselor several times a week. But her mom says they only learned that after her suicide attempt.
And this is the sad part. The notification, the parent notification, why wasn't her mother notified? How is it that she could be going to the school counselor and the mother not being notified? This is absolutely...
They say fellow students allegedly taunted her about immigration and what it would be like if her parents were deported.
They would tell me ICE was going to come. They would tell her ICE was going to come and get her parents, and she was going to be here alone.
The Gainesville Independent School District would not comment on her case, telling us that we take any reports of bullying at our schools very seriously and have a zero tolerance policy and respond swiftly to ensure all students are safe physically.
That's pretty much what they're all going to say. Throughout all of these clips, it's always the same thing. We take bullying seriously. It wasn't us. We take it seriously. I don't know. You know what I mean? They just a generic statement that just completely disregards the total loss of life and what these parents and what these children are dealing with.
Yadriel Rivero Jusino was only in the 7th grade. His family tells me Jusino was picked on and even beaten because he had a disability and was, as his parents described, a pretty quiet kid. Sadly, on June 3rd, Jusino took his life. His sister was the first to find him. His family tells me Yadriel Rivera Jusino, he kept to himself and enjoyed helping others. But on June 10th, the family of 11-year-old Jusino said their final goodbyes at his funeral, shattered by his loss, but determined to keep the truth behind his suicide alive.
Some guys be doing bullying to him and 2 or 3 of his friends.
Jusino's stepfather, Jonathan Gonzalez, said 5 bullies would call his son a loser and said he didn't deserve to be alive. But it wasn't just verbal abuse.
One time when I arrived to pick up him, I see him with one eye like this. When I return to school and ask him to talk to the principals, they say, sorry, it's 3:30. They are not working now.
His sister and Gonzalez said they both reached out for help from school administrators, but the response was far from what they expected.
She explained to me that she talked to the principal and he say that he gonna resolve the situation. But like you see, he don't do anything.
Georgia. All right. Just same thing. Parents, they're going to the principal. They're one case, they didn't even tell the parents. Another case, they're going to the principal. Nothing's being done, over and over again. And trust me, I have my own stories with this, where I have reported bullying to the administration. Absolutely nothing is done. I'm powerless to stop it, other than to try to separate the students. We receive absolutely no support when it comes to keeping these students safe.
Now to Georgia, and allegations of bullying at the bus stop, alleged bullying that turned deadly. The question now is, what can schools and politicians do about it?
The parents of a Georgia 6th grader are demanding change after they say their daughter died from injuries suffered in a fight at a bus stop.
We got a 12-year-old that should be here.
Video from March 5th shows a school bus pulling away as 12-year-old Jada West and another girl yell and taunt each other.
Now see, this is the thing right here. The bus driver, I know the bus driver saw getting rowdy, yelling at each other, that the fight was about to start. You still see the bus in the clip. The bus is still not gone. You know what I'm saying? And I understand that the bus driver has a load of other children on the bus, but where is the bus aide? And I guarantee you this argument probably started on the bus. They didn't just get off the bus and then before the bus can even take off, they decide they're going to argue. No. This was already starting inside the school. They most likely were arguing on the bus, and you can see where the bus just takes off. And that's why every bus should have not only a bus driver but a bus aide, because in a situation like this, the bus can park and the bus aide could get off the bus and say, hey, y'all get to where you gotta go.
Fight you over some noise. Moments later, a fistfight breaks out. The two fall to the pavement, with Jada landing on her back. Oh my God! A woman intervenes and the girls separate, but police say soon after the clip ends, Jada went into cardiac arrest, and a few days later, she passed away.
We want to find out why she's not here. If it was some negligence by the school system, the bus driver, or anybody like.
Her mother says Jada was frequently bullied since being transferred to the school, and the family says her father visited the school twice to address the issue. The school district says this incident did not occur on school property or during school hours, and there is nothing to indicate that this is related to any on-campus activity. The family's lawyers say they're now exploring legal options. They're also pushing for lawmakers to intervene and require schools to report bullying to parents.
It should be some type of law that requires the schools to report bullying to parents. But look at what the school said. I mean, look at how they just completely, this incident did not occur on school property. Babe, the school bus was still in the scene as they were fighting. You literally saw the bus taking off in the background. Okay, so this was fresh out of school. But they're going to say, instead of saying, you know, anything taking accountability or we're going to update our policies, we're working to resolve this matter. None of that. This incident did not occur on school property or during school hours. There's nothing to indicate that this is related to any on-campus activity. Wow. Okay, what an insult to everybody's intelligence. I mean, I've already said before, how in the world would they just start a brand new argument and the bus is still right there? So as soon as they got off the bus, I'm talking about less than 30 seconds later, boom, it escalates into a fight. I mean, you know, just tell us anything. You know, they must really think that parents are just stupid. You know, and that's the thing. In all of these cases, these parents have said, I went to the school, and except for one where the school didn't even report it to the mom. And these people right here in this Georgia case, they're saying like, look, it should be the law that the school has to report these things to parents. So now I'm going to tell you about my experiences. There's a reason why the schools do not report these things to parents. There's a reason why they don't report it, period. As many things as they can keep off paper, they're going to keep it off paper. Because I don't know how it works in every state, but in my state, if too many parents start to withdraw their students and go to, say, a charter school or homeschool or private school or anything like that, the money follows the students. Okay, the money follows the students. So now when you pull your child out, and in my state it's before some date in October, when you pull them out, that child, that school is going to lose funding for that child. Okay, so now they don't want you to just take your child out of the school. They want you to think the school is just the best thing ever. They don't want you to really know what's going on in the schools, because that would cause problems for them. If I had $1 for every time there was bullying in my classroom, and I did everything that was within my power as a teacher to document this, to report it to the administrators, and nothing gets done. The worst case, this was the worst case that, one of the worst cases, because there's I don't know. There's so many bad cases, and so I don't really know which one's worse, because sometimes it's sexual abuse and sometimes it's bullying. This one was a combination of both. Okay, so this young lady, she was relentlessly bullied. All right, and so she would come up to me and she would say, hey, they're calling me a 304, a thought, a hoe, and all of these things. Okay, I don't know why they targeted this little girl, maybe because she was a very attractive young lady. That most likely was probably it. So she comes to me, and I didn't personally hear these children saying this, so I go to the administrator and said, hey, what can be done? She's coming to me, she's crying, she's telling me that she's getting harassed, sexually harassed. They're saying all these things about her. The administrator says, well, is that something that you heard the other students say, or is this something that you actually seen yourself? I said, well, I didn't see it myself. Of course, they're not going to say it right in front of me. But, this little girl is not a behavior problem. She doesn't have any reason to lie. She's come to me in tears. And so I don't see why she would lie. And so there was no investigation. There was absolutely nothing done. Nothing. He was like, well, I can't take anything based off of hearsay. All right, so now it escalates. Now, allegedly, a little boy, grabbed her and put his private area on her behind. Grabbed her like that. I wasn't there. They were in ancillary. We call it ancillary. That's when they go to enrichment, okay? So they were there when this allegedly happened. So here comes the parent. So the parent comes to school. She says, listen, my daughter says she's reported to you that she's been bullied, that she's been called names. Now it's escalated, and now this child has literally put his crotch up against her bottom. And she was like, what is being done? And I said, listen, I went to the principal, and I told her what he told me. He said, that if I didn't see it directly. And so she was like, well, I want something done. So she goes to the principal, okay? And I wasn't at that meeting because it didn't happen in my class. It happened during ancillary. But all I can say is that the little boy went to in-school suspension. Let me tell you about in-school suspension. That's something to keep it off the books. Like when a school has so many documented suspensions or so many, and they don't talk about expulsions. It's really hard to get the child expelled. But, apparently the higher ups start to get on the school. They want to keep the suspensions as low as possible, because then they would have to report why the child got suspended, and they don't want to report these things, okay? So in-school suspension is a total joke. It's where they go and they sit in a classroom and they're supposedly punished in that classroom. But I've heard several students come back laughing, saying it's fun, they can't wait to go back. You know what I mean? That they're up in there and they're having a good time. All right, so now there's the in-school suspension. So that child gets 3 days of in-school suspension. And he's back. And he had himself a good time in in-school suspension. And him and the other children, they're still bullying this child. All right, and it's usually not usually. It's out of my sight. She's telling me it's at the cafeteria, which I'm not present. It's at the enrichment, which I'm also not present, or it's in the hallway. It's the teachers are not. We can't be everywhere at once. I mean, we're not omniscient or whatever it is, omnipotent, whichever one. We're not that, all right? So she's reporting it to me, and all I can do is report it to the administrators. But, they're not reviewing cameras. They're not interviewing students. They're not really doing anything. They finally, in school suspended one little boy that allegedly grabbed her. But that was about it. And so She comes up to me and she tells me that she wants to take her own life. You know, I'm sorry. I can only write it up and write it to the administrators, and now it's up to them to do something about it. And usually they don't. I don't know what goes on in the life of an administrator and why they don't take care of it. I have heard, different things about why they don't. And it has everything to do with keeping the school records clear. So, but I don't know why they don't do anything about it. But they usually don't. The most I've heard is that the student that's doing the bullying has rights too. And so when the parent says, hey, can you separate the child? If you're not going to expel the child or suspend the child, can you at least put them in another classroom? And they say, well, no, that child has rights too. So really it's, you wondering, okay, well, now what? Because why is it that good parents are having to take our children out of school? My children are homeschooled, and homeschooling isn't easy, but I've learned to love it. But why is it that good parents have to take our children out of school, and these, troubled children and troubled parents can just run the school? Why is that? All I can do is spread the word. That's all I can do. I'm doing my best to do as much as I can, because it's sad when you see a child tell you they want to take their own life, and you are supposed to be the person that's responsible for them, and there's nothing you can do. So I'm gonna keep spreading the word. Like and subscribe if you want me to keep sharing this.